Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. Welcome to One to One. So, Joe Biden is out and Kamala Harris is in. The gloom that had settled over Democrats like a heavy fog has lifted, and a new sense of excitement and energy is filling the air. Meanwhile, Republicans are promising to trounce the Democratic presidential contender with Hulk Hogan-like fury. Who says we aren't living in interesting times? Ronnie Eldridge has lived through many interesting times. As a journalist, women's rights advocate, assistant to Mayor John Lindsay, cabinet member under Governor Mario Cuomo, New York City Council member, and currently as host of Keeping Relevant, a forum for politics and public affairs on this station. She'll give us her take on these recent developments, on her concerns about what's happening in both national and local politics, and about how both young and old people can stay relevant. Welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Ronnie, before the last few days, just a few days ago, all of my friends, all the Democrats I knew, were steeped in despair, about Joe Biden's very low chances against Donald Trump. And the feeling was, okay, there's nobody else. Who else is there at the Democratic Party who could be a better contender? And Kamala Harris, well, she's sort of mediocre. No. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, she is the presumed nominee, and everybody is all excited. What happened to bring about that change?
It's amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. I was thinking the other day, I feel so good today. And why is it? And I think we were worrying about what was going to happen, although I have always been so optimistic that I can't believe that the people in this country are going to elect Donald Trump. I just can't believe that he's a candidate. I can't believe that the media takes him seriously. I can't believe the whole thing. Anyway, it is amazing. And what's also amazing is that we're watching this woman who suddenly has gained this vitality and credibility and she's doing it with such grace and as a woman. I mean, we used to worry about, is the country ready for a woman? I don't think that's a question anymore.
But Kamala Harris is the same Kamala Harris today as she was 4 days ago when people were discounting her.
But it's gotten a whole different attitude.
And I sort of think what happened was a change in the Democratic Party's attitude toward her, that they decided to bring her out of the shadows and firmly support her and say, we can do it. And if we really back her, she's always been more qualified than Trump, but he was able to get elected president. But a change in the attitude that we can do this and that we've got a good candidate, and if we stand behind her 100%, she can beat Trump.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think there's no doubt about it, but also there's an ease with her. It's not like when Hillary had to prove that a woman could be president.
Right.
I think it's already an acceptance. I think part of it is that we've seen women on the international scale and we're more used to it. I don't think we're questioning that anymore. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I was reading a column in the New York Times, and the columnist was saying, and my question was, well, who made this happen? Who made this happen? And the columnist was saying it was Nancy Pelosi behind the scenes playing hardball. So this is what we're going to do. Kamala Harris is qualified, and we are going to pick her, and we're going to stand behind her. And that made sense to me, that it was Nancy. I wish Nancy were younger. I wish she were running for president because she's a tough woman.
Yeah.
We still have, however, the misogyny, the anti-woman feeling of the American voting public, I think somewhat. And, and people were concerned that she's a person of color and that you might get some backlash about that. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I think that the person of color, which is usually referred to as a black vote, right? I think the fact that it's energized and the fact that it was rumored that even the black voters are pulling away from Biden, I think it became a very important, acceptable, appreciative, necessary vote. So the fact that you've got all these, the sorority and all of the whole political thing enhances her candidacy. I can't believe that we have seriously assumed that Donald Trump, a second time around, could be elected president. I think I couldn't believe that he got elected the first time, so that was really hard.
So I actually yesterday wrote a check
Exactly.
for the Democratic presidential campaign, and I have friends who
everybody,
said they've done the same
everybody
thing.
I know has done
Really
that.
are writing checks?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the sound that you hear is the ballpoint pen
And
scratching.
it's the excitement that they've raised so much money. I mean,
Yeah.
$80 million in one.
You know, in the past, and I'm sure I have some friends who are going to say, I want to be involved in the campaign other than just giving money, and going to say, well, I'm going to sign up to go to Pennsylvania, wherever they go to knock, on doors and make phone calls. Now, I have never wanted to do that because mostly when people knock on my door and make a phone call to me, I find that very annoying. Now, does that actually help? Do you have a sense that that actually helps ring out a vote? Or is it just people who just want to feel they're involved and so they go out and do it? What do you think?
I don't know. I also don't. No, I like to hear from somebody. I don't think it necessarily determines my vote, but I don't like it when it's impersonal on the phone. I had a granddaughter who, when Buttigieg was running for president, who went out to Iowa and was an organizer for him. And I told her I'd help her make some phone calls, and I really hate making the phone calls. So one of my first phone calls was to the family, and the man who answered, I asked for the woman. He said, it depends who's calling. I said, is so-and-so there? Depends who's calling. So I stumbled, and then I finally said, I'm calling on behalf of my granddaughter who's working for Buttigieg. He said, for you, she's here.
And I assume you made more than one call. What was that experience like for you?
And then later she told me when she went door to door and she rang their bell, not knowing who they were, they said, are you the granddaughter?
Really?
Yes. What was the experience like? Is that
Of making
you
phone
feel
calls.
that you've done something.
Okay.
I think that's the big thing. The making the phone call, is sending a postcard. You feel you've really contributed to something, which is what has fallen off on a lot of the campaigning, because money is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's...
Are you going to be doing it this time around, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think I did. But I have no way of... relating to the politics of today is so different. The world is different. I mean,
Tell me about that.
I think the social media has changed so much. And I think I was, I remember the debates with Nixon and Kennedy and how important that was, and how important John Kennedy, the advantage he got because he was so photogenic and he could do so much on television. So to imagine the extra dimension of social media, I just can't. I can't do it anymore. So I'm really now just a voter, I think.
Is it that the candidates are different or what?
No, I don't think the candidates are different. I think the voters are different. I think that they don't have the same commitment to voting. I mean, I'm one of these people who believes that civics should be taught in school. It's a very important thing for people to learn their role as a citizen of the United States.
Do you think it actually isn't taught? I mean, I just sort of...
I don't think it is taught. No.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
And it was very important to me. I mean, when I was in school, I had wonderful teachers and a group that Eleanor Roosevelt had founded nationally. There was a club in my high school, and we were very active. We knew we had to be active. We had a sense of community that I don't think people have anymore because they have the social media. They have their websites and their Facebooks and their different kinds of information coming from all over. But it's not anything that requires them to participate.
Mm-hmm. Or any kind of group
It's
solidarity.
Not even a
It's
group.
all individual.
It's understanding that you're supposed to be an active member of your community.
Yeah.
You know, you're supposed to be an active member of the community and and you vote. Now, voting is one of the single most important things we can do as a citizen.
Well, certainly my sense when I was teaching at Queens College is that students were not voting.
Yeah, they don't.
And they were not following the news.
Right.
I would ask them, well, where do you get your news from? And they would say Facebook. Now, I'm not sure exactly how you get news from Facebook, but that's where they said they were.
Well, somebody who's got an opinion about something writes it, or sends a quote from somebody else.
Right.
I mean, I get some ridiculous things from friends. Not that I'm on Facebook. They send me something that they've seen. But, right.
Well, they're not teaching civics. As somebody who's taught journalism and English, I know they're not teaching grammar. So
Oh, that's for sure.
They're definitely not teaching that. So to people who want to be a part of getting Kamala Harris elected, what do you suggest that they do? What do you think, how should they get involved?
That's very interesting. I think you look on the website, and I'm sure there'll be some references to it. There are different groups that meet. I mean, there's a group that meets to write postcards, but they have a wonderful website, and they have speakers. They have people running for office all over the country, and they speak on Zoom, and you come to those sessions. I don't know. You have to work to find out how you're going to do it.
I'm sure if you Google, how do I get involved in Democratic politics or in the election, you can find out online. There seems to be endless coverage of national politics these days. There are all of these panels. They're all covering the same thing over and over and over again. What's your view of, maybe that's not a problem for you, what do you think of the coverage of national politics these days?
It's repetitive, I think. You have to know, you have to know where to look, and you usually look for things that you agree with, I guess.
Right.
So I have somebody in my family who he doesn't agree with Fox, but he loves to see who those people are. He'll watch all the enemies. I alternate between CNN and MSNBC.
Yeah.
I always want to watch the 6:30 news, the network news, but I'm fascinated that if they spend a minute on a topic, that's it. You really get straight news, I guess, at 6:30. Yeah. And you just tend to watch. Sometimes it's too painful, and you go, with recent days and months with Biden, you stop listening because you can't listen to it anymore. And then she comes and you're excited, and so you listen.
Right.
I don't know. It reinforces, I guess, what you're feeling.
Yeah. You and I had a conversation recently where you were lamenting the coverage or the lack of coverage of local news.
There is no coverage of local news, which is terrible. I mean, people don't. They have no idea.
And certainly of local politics, or local politics in particular.
Exactly. We have no idea what's going on because there is no local news. I think you have to watch some of the local. I don't know what you watch for local news.
I guess New York 1.
Right, but you have to have that service.
And I don't.
Neither do
I haven't seen New York 1 in years, and they're the people who cover.
Isn't that terrible?
Yes. Yes. You're also concerned about not just the coverage of local politics, but about the state of local politics, you were telling me.
Well, we have fewer and fewer people voting every year. I mean, it's astonishing to me at how little we vote and how people are elected with small votes. City council member, if you have 7,000 votes, you've got a lot of votes. It shouldn't be that. We should have more participation, but I think that goes back to the whole atmosphere where people aren't aware of what, what's, I don't know.
But also
Their
you suggested
importance.
that the party structure is not what it
Well,
used
it's
to be.
not, we don't have strong party structure at all. I mean, we have an ongoing dispute within the state committee about who's leading the state committee, and there's a group of dissidents, but who is the state committee? I mean, I don't think people even know that. That gets elected in a primary, and you don't have the faintest idea who the state committee is. Who are the representatives on the Democratic National Committee? We have no idea who, or on the Republican National Committee. I mean, I don't think we have the ability to follow it because we don't have the local news, I guess.
Yeah.
Nor do we just don't have the interest. I don't know.
You've been around and you've done so many things, which I mentioned before, and you're still doing your show. How does one age well, which you seem to be doing? You got any advice?
No, I'm always asking myself the same question. I suddenly one day was old. I never thought about the future. I never did.
Yeah.
And, suddenly, I think it must have been after Jimmy, my husband, died, and you're sort of there on your own.
Right.
I don't know when it hurt me that I was really old.
But
But
you're still active.
I'm still trying, yeah. I'm still interested. I still read the paper every morning, even though it's the early edition, so it's always an old, old news.
You're right.
Which is crazy. But I'm looking for the features, the other stories that it doesn't matter because
Right.
they don't happen that often. And I watch the television, and I'm wondering, what is it all about? It's a big question. Have you ever thought of getting old?
Lately.
Because you're going to get old. But I never thought of being old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And suddenly you realize you've got grandchildren and running around doing all these things.
But you're enjoying doing your show.
I'm enjoying doing my show. It's very important to me to do it for myself. I'm just grateful that I can do it.
That you can do it.
And I am enjoying life, even though I sound as if I'm not.
How do you feel about aging in politics? I mean, the whole issue of Joe Biden's.
Well, that's of
mental
course I was.
acuity.
Yeah, the issue about Joe Biden was very painful. I think. I remember my mother once said something about some crazy thing about somewhere in the South Pacific. She was lamenting that she was getting old. Somewhere in the South Pacific, they make the old people climb the coconut trees and then they shake them out and they hope that they die on the fall. I mean, it was a question of the uselessness of age. It was very painful to watch it. I don't think he had watched the program to understand what people were talking about.
If he had watched himself,
He might
in
have
the
had a
debate-
big understanding of what people were talking about.
And you don't think he did?
I don't think he said he hadn't watched it. And then he
Okay.
said then he finally said he watched a part of it. But it also made me wonder: should I be still doing my program? It was very.
I would say yes.
It was very unsettling because any person who had a debate like he had a debate and performed that way would ordinarily say to themselves, "I can't do this.
I'm stepping down.
Yeah, I can't do this."
Yeah.
But he didn't do that. And
Yeah.
so it makes you question. I think it made me question.
I mean, we didn't understand the extent to which they were protecting him until we saw the debate,
Right.
you know. How about Donald Trump's mental acuity and how is he?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's a psychopath and he's a crazy man. And I don't understand how all of these people have allowed that to go
As
by.
far as,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just don't understand it.
Tell me about your show, which
But now suddenly, because of Kamala, you know, he's the old man. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Right, right. So you've been doing your show for CUNY TV for a while.
Since I left the city council, which is over 20
Really?
years.
How?
Over 20 years.
Oh my goodness. It's changed names.
Yes, it changed names. Well, you know, as I got to be older, I wanted to talk a little bit more about aging and
And about, you know, relevance.
yeah.
It's a great title for a show. You have a wide variety of people on it. It's not just, I mean, you do the politics thing because that's your thing, but other areas as well.
It's basically a very selfish show. It's what interests me.
Whatever interests you.
Yeah. Right. Well, what about you?
I would say the same thing.
Okay.
I'm not as politically inclined as you are, and I tell people, you know, to cover politics a lot or talk about politics a lot, you really have to care about the game of politics. And you have to understand the game, you have to like the game, you have to care about the game. I don't really understand the game,
And you don't
like the
like
game, or care about the game. I care about who's in charge and who's doing at people's policies, but the game of politics. And I also found, like in the past, when I think I was once asked to be on a long time ago, New York One, and we were talking about some local political race, and everybody else in the show, they knew all of these obscure people and all of these little machinations and backroom dealings, and I had no idea of. And it's because they were fascinated with the game, liked the game, cared about the game. But I think you have to do all those things if you're going to cover it.
I was born on Franklin Roosevelt's birthday in the deep part of the Depression. And he had the March of Dimes, and it was always a big gala on his birthday, which was my birthday. And I just had this immediate follow. I mean, he was my inspiration for everything.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Okay.
And so I grew up during his tenure. And my parents were big Roosevelt supporters. And that was my interest in politics.
Okay.
And then I couldn't wait when I majored in political science at college. And I even volunteered and worked at the polls when I was in school. And I couldn't wait to join my local Democratic club. And it happened to be the early days of the reform movement. And we were running against Tammany Hall. And it was heady. It was so exciting. And I loved it. I just loved it. And then I became a district leader, which is part of the executive committee of the Democratic Party in the city. And we had some great victories. And I got to know Robert Kennedy when I wanted him to run for the Senate in New York, and I became very close to him. And I was the liberal person in the state you would go through to get to him in his office. And my experiences were very heady. And then when John Lindsay lost the Republican primary and lost the nomination for his second term, they asked if I would help, and I went in always as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And organized the Democrats for Lindsay. They said, "How about coming to City Hall?" And I became
okay, I'll come to City Hall.
I had 3 children at home and a husband, and
so you had to get out.
You
needed to get out of the house.
I remember.
So you went to City Hall.
When I finally met Lindsay and he extended the invitation to come to City Hall, I said he wanted to know how much money I wanted. And I thought, I couldn't talk about money. And I said that my husband says I'd have to come as an au pair girl if I don't make at least $25,000 a year. That was my beginning in
Well, you're very different, because I have to say that the people that I know who got involved in local politics, it was always seemed to be because they were hoping to get something out of it personally, that it would help them in their law practice, that would help them, they would get some contacts that would help them in their business or in their profession. There always seemed, and I think there are a lot of people like that who are, even if they get into politics for noble reasons, it becomes, okay, what can I get out of this? How can I help my family? How can I start a nonprofit that will get city money or state money? And certainly that's unfortunate for the rest of us.
Oh, definitely. I just did it because I thought it was, you know, I loved it, but I also believed that was what a person should do, is to be active in your community or in your politics.
Yeah. I'm afraid we're out of time, but I want to thank Ronnie Eldridge for joining me today. To learn about our upcoming shows, you can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at 121 CUNY TV. For the City University of New York and 121, I'm Cheryl McCarthy.